Welcome to our first lesson where we're going to be talking about world building issues. You may be wondering, what is world building exactly? Well, world building is the process of constructing an imaginary world, sometimes associated with the whole fictional universe. The term world building was actually popularized at science fiction writers' workshops in the 1970s. When you hear the term world building, what comes to mind? Maybe it's the Star Wars universe, or the sprawling, gritty world of George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones series, or the richly detailed Middle-earth of J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. The examples I just mentioned are fantasy, yes, but would the story of two young lovers from very different backgrounds have been as gripping if it hadn't been set aboard the Titanic? Part of what makes a story work so well is its world, whether it's contemporary or fantasy. We all knew the inevitable conclusion to Rose and Jack's story in the Titanic, and this helped us connect with the tale and its characters. World building is just as important for a contemporary story set in Iowa as it is in an alien universe. And why? Because life in an Iowa small town is totally foreign to someone who grew up in the big city life of Los Angeles or New York City, right? If your character puts cheese on his pie, we may come to understand that's part of his world in his Wisconsin town, not Los Angeles. Simply put, world building is so that your characters have a place to live, work, and play. Every one of your favorite books, movies, and TV shows involves building a world, even if it looks a lot like our own. And putting the time into it will improve your writing and enrich your story. Now, world building is more than just setting. World building actually covers everything and anything inside that world. This could be money, clothing, land boundaries, tribal customs, building materials, transportation, food, and yes, even sex. And a great way to get world building in throughout your novel is through action and dialogue, rather than through giant boulders of description and exposition. I've definitely learned a lot about world building through the many editors I've worked with over the years. And on one round of deep revision of the first book in my children's series, Joshua and the Lightning Road, my editor wrote this: "There is a richness missing in the manuscript, and there needs to be more solid world building. Where are we? Another planet? Another town? A different world? Are these worlds like ours, but different? And how? What are the differences? Is there lack of sun? Is the air the same, or is it different?" So as you can see, I had not ground my editor in the world of my story. We want to use senses to ground the reader and show how the characters are feeling. If they are outside, there could be a breeze. Show us the world through the characters' eyes. So, for example, if you're on the ground in a scene, you could say something like, "The earth was all gravel beneath my feet." Or maybe you're inside a tunnel. You could write, "The stale air threatened to choke me." Other examples are that you can show your world through dialogue where you can reveal time and distance. For example, you could write something like, "Tom's house was just 2 miles away," or "It takes a day's walk to get there," or "It's 1 day's travel by horse," or "I hadn't been back there since last summer." These are all ways that we can ground the reader in the story world and also show time and distance. So as you can see, we need to ground the reader in the story, otherwise they are lost. Setting conveyed through the eyes of the character can also reveal the psychology of a place and enrich character building. Now, for example, in the beginning of Robert Goulrich's A Reliable Wife, the words used to convey the setting through weather reveal not only this world, but also how the main character sees it. And this colors the entire novel. Let's take a listen. So let's take a look at how Robert Goulrich in A Reliable Wife uses weather to convey setting. And this is the beginning of the story. "It was not snowing yet, but it would be soon, a blizzard by the smell of it. The land lay covered already in trampled snow. The land here flew away from your eyes, gone into the black horizon, without leaving one detail inside the eye. Stubble through the snow, sharp as razors. Crows picking at nothing. Black river, frigid oil." "Nothing says hell has to be fire," thought Ralph Truitt, standing in his sober clothes on the platform of the tiny train station in the frozen middle of frozen nowhere. Hell could be like this. It could be darker every minute. It could be cold enough to sear the skin from your bones. Standing in the center of the crowd, his solitude was enormous. He felt that in all the vast and frozen space in which he lived his life, every hand needy, every heart wanting something from him, everybody had a reason to be and a place to land. Everybody but him. For him there was nothing. In all the cold and bitter world, there was not a single place for him to sit down. So I think Gulrich does a fabulous job in this book, not only conveying setting through weather, but also showing us this world through the main character's eyes. And this is something we definitely can aim to do in our world building. I want to talk for a moment about avoiding too much technology in your story world. Now, in reading young adult books as a literary agency intern, I came across many manuscripts overblown with the use of technology. iPods, iPads, smartphones, etc. For me, it took me out of the story and could date the work later. So question the use of adding technology, movies, books, or even other trends that could date your work later. Ask yourself this: does it connect to the theme, plot, or character growth? Do you think you need to add technology in a book for teens? I don't believe necessarily so, unless it's crucial to the plot, or if it shows character growth, or if it reveals that theme. Read popular books in your genre and you may be surprised. Many books seem timeless, and for a reason. One of my favorite young adult authors, Joan Bauer, writes timelessly in her novels, like Rules of the Road and Hope Was Here, a Newbery Honor book. Some authors do it well, like John Green with The Fault in Our Stars. He uses emails and letters, but they are a central part of the theme and also character building. When I was an intern for the literary agency and reading manuscripts for the agent, I would write up an evaluation of the manuscripts I read, focusing on many of these issues that I'm talking about with you today, one of them being world building. Here are some actual notes that I wrote to the agent about one story that had world building issues. I wrote, "The writer started out grounding us in the story and setting with wonderful descriptive details, drawing on all 5 senses. And then she just stopped, and I stopped reading. The writer stopped grounding us in the story." So here's another world building tip. Don't get lazy. Continue lavishing wonderful descriptive details within your story all the way through that draw on all 5 senses. This will keep us in the characters and the setting and the story world, which is absolutely what you want to do with your readers. Keep them in the story. I want to read an example here from Shipbreaker by Paolo Bacigalupi. This is an award-winning young adult novel, and it's a very visceral novel. So what I mean by that is it's very raw with details, with emotion, and in every word that we read throughout the story. So I want to read a little scene here from the story to give you an idea about how we can lavish details on our story to show this world and also the emotional state of the character. And just to give you a little bit about this book, it's set in a dystopian society where fossil fuels have run out in the world. And so people scavenge old oil tankers to find oil so that they can sell it and survive. And this is who our main character is here, called Naylor. And here he is in one of these old oil tankers. The tanker was huge, one of the workhorses of the oil age, almost a floating city in itself. And now he was deep in its guts. When Jackson Boy died, no one had been able to find him. They'd heard him banging away in the metal, calling out, but no one could locate a way into the double hull, where he trapped himself. A year later, heavy crews cut open a section of iron, and the little lice biter's mummified body had popped out like a pill from a blister pack, dry like leaves, rattling as it hit the deck, rat-chewed and desiccated. Don't think about it. You'll just bring his ghost onto the ship. The duct was tightening, squeezing around his shoulders. Naylor began to imagine himself stuck like a cork in a bottle, pinned in the darkness, never able to get free. He strained forward and yanked down another length of wire. Enough, more than enough. So I had mentioned earlier about not getting lazy with your descriptive details and to continue to lavish them throughout the story. This book is a great example of how this is done throughout the story. And in the story, the details draw you in to the action, to the character's internal thoughts, and also his emotional state. Thanks so much for watching this lesson on world building, and I'll see you in the next lesson.